Australian Aviation Podcast, the official podcast of Australian Aviation, unpacking the latest insights, developments and issues impacting Australia's aviation sector.
Hello and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Nelson, and I'm here with my co-host, the Deputy Editor of Cyber Daily and reigning Momentum Media hot dog eating champion, David Hollingworth.
I do love a hot dog.
And that's why you're the reigning champion.
No one can beat me. The trick is to dip the entire dog, bun and all, into a glass of water. Helps it just slide down the gullet a lot easier.
Well, I'm sure that there's a lot of listeners out there who would be very glad to know that.
Gripping audio right here. I mean, I could do it on stream, but no, I won't. I don't have a glass of water with me. It probably wouldn't work with coffee.
The eagle-eyed among you may notice that we are not in the Australian Aviation studio today, and that is because I am here on location in scenic Honolulu, and definitely not at home with a cold.
I definitely prefer the idea of the former over the latter.
Yeah, it's wonderful here in Hawaii. The
light looks so golden.
Home Japan of the world's most stationary palm trees.
Yeah.
Let's because I have such limited time here in Honolulu, what with time zones and everything, let's get straight into the week's news. One of the big stories, of course, that came out this week, and one that you're uniquely positioned to talk about, David, is this big hack of European airports. Can you tell us a bit about what's going on there?
So this is quite stunning. This popped up over the weekend. So on Friday, an as yet unidentified ransomware actor, this is according to the European Cybersecurity Agency, targeted a company called Collins Aerospace. Collins Aerospace is responsible for a check-in and boarding platform called Muse. And this went down across Heathrow Airport, Dublin Airport, Brussels Airport, and I think maybe Berlin Airport as well. All these airports are still in the middle of their recoveries. Flights were cancelled, like dozens of flights. Hundreds of flights were late. The check-in staff had reverted to paper and manual check-in processes. And anybody who's traveled internationally knows what kind of a slowdown that would be. Even as of yesterday, Heathrow was saying, we are working with airlines to recover from this. And basically it's... Apparently, I'm catching your flu. It's one of those single.
I don't have a flu. Remember, I'm in Honolulu.
Oh, you're in Honolulu.
But if I did have a cold, I probably would have caught it from someone in the office, and I'm not naming names. Steve.
No. Who's not in today? Probably because of the flu he has. So it's one of those classic single points of failure, which frankly should be a wake-up call to airlines around the world. In fact, one Monash University professor here said absolutely our airports should be looking at this kind of single point of failure and what we can do to be ready for when it does happen. It reminds me a little bit of what happened last year with the CrowdStrike outage, which took down airports all over the world because all their systems just stopped working and none of them had proper failover. So yeah, it's a big one, but we don't know who did it yet.
People were speculating that it might be Scattered Spider.
It's very easy to make that speculation because they have gone after airlines in the past, whether it's Scattered Spider, Shiny Hunters, or Scattered Lapsus Hunters, which is the apparent supergroup they've formed that may have broken up a little while ago. Look, I could talk about that.
I prefer the Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me too. Funnily enough, less crimes. Yes, less crimes. Just had to think about that, considering who's in the Traveling Wilburys. Probably some crimes, but only those nice kind of crimes.
No one better at taking you to the end of the line.
Absolutely. But yeah, so we don't know yet. Pointing a finger at this stage is literally that. Everyone's making a guess. It's easy to make a guess that it's that group, Scattered Spider or Shiny Hunters. But at the moment, all the European Cybersecurity Agency is saying is that it's definitely a ransomware actor. We had one British politician, member of the Lib Dems, say, we must be looking at Russia. Because, of course, with Russia testing the airspace of various NATO and EU countries, that's very much on people's mind at the moment. But at the moment, it looks like it may have been a criminal enterprise rather than a state-backed one.
Of course, that doesn't rule out it coming from Russia, considering that it was a ransomware attack.
Absolutely. There are a lot of Russian ransomware operators, and there is a lot of overlap between the criminal element and the state-backed element within Russia. A lot of these these groups are allowed to operate because a lot of what the money they make is then funneled back into the Russian economy. So absolutely, a Russian or a Russian group could be involved, whether it's state-backed or not. That's hard to say. It's just speculation, pure speculation.
Now, you mentioned that there's been experts saying that Australian airports should watch out for this. What does this sort of thing mean for Australia?
So, we're very far away from all those airports, and clearly none of our airports use that particular software, or if they do, they're effectively air gap from whatever is happening in Europe. But it means that we should be looking that if we have, so I don't know how it works here, you'd probably be a better place to answer this one. So who administers our airports? Is that Air Services Australia?
Air Services Australia does air traffic control.
Air traffic control, yeah.
So most airports in Australia, like a lot of the airports in Australia, are privately owned or sort of owned by local governments.
Yeah.
I suppose airport regulation and all of this would fall under transport and infrastructure. But it's not that there's like one body that controls all of the airports. And then you've got, the slot managers and things like that. People who decide when and where the planes can take off. So it's sort of a hodgepodge.
Which could be a defense in and of its own right, because maybe we don't have that single point of failure. The thing to remember here is this wasn't so much an attack on airports, this was an attack on the software that airports use. So it's very much a third-party supply chain hack, effectively.
Yeah. I know that, Sabre is a booking system and, a management system that a lot of airports and airlines use. I don't know how sort of widespread it is. I remember that there was the problem with Sabre the other week when I was getting on the flight to Canberra.
Right.
We mentioned that last week. But it's, I mean, you're the cybersecurity expert of the two of us. So it's a good reminder, as far as you're concerned, to.
Oh, absolutely. So we've already seen these airports in Europe and the UK go to manual processes. So we need to make sure here in Australia that we understand those processes incredibly well, or that we have backups, that if some system goes down, there's a big red button that people can punch and that another system will come back up to replace it. Because it would be very easy, if this incident can take down an airport like Heathrow. I don't know if you've been through Heathrow much. I've spent
I
way
haven't.
more.
I believe Adam Thorne is over there at the moment. So
He probably is. Yes, we could check
in
him
Heathrow,
our on-the-ground correspondent. But Heathrow is sprawling. It is massive. And this one incident took the entire airport down. I think anybody managing an airport throughout the world should be looking at this and going, oh boy, okay, how do we avoid that? Because there is a saying in cybersecurity, it's not a matter of if you're going to get hacked, it's when. So every airport operator in Australia should be looking at this and going, okay, how would we respond? They should start doing testing, tabletop exercises. They should be updating their playbooks to make sure they know what to do when this inevitably happens here in Australia. Because it could take down our entire airline system, really. Because I imagine a lot of our airports probably do run interoperable software. So there's that single point of failure again.
And of course, not too long about this after this Heathrow incident, we've had super typhoon Ragasa bearing down on Hong Kong, and I think Adam he flew out through Hong Kong, or he might have done. Don't know if he was planning to fly back through Hong Kong, but one would hope that he wasn't planning on doing it this week.
A super typhoon. I mean, typhoons are bad enough, and I've traveled through that part of the world as well. The idea of a super typhoon going through there is absolutely terrifying.
It's pretty huge. It's much worse than a super group.
Absolutely.
Yes, as of Wednesday morning, which is when we're recording this, a lot of flights into and out of Hong Kong International Airport have been cancelled for safety reasons. The airport itself is remaining open, but can't imagine there would be too many flights transiting through there, what with the super typhoon passing to the south.
And that's pretty impactful for a lot of airlines around the entire region, if not the world, because that's a major through point, isn't it?
It is a major through point. I mean, excuse me, Sea Air again. I mean, Cathay Pacific, that's the central hub. I think they've cancelled about 500 flights. You've got carriers like Hong Kong Airlines, HK Express. Qantas flies to Hong Kong daily from Sydney and Melbourne, so they've got I think 8 flights cancelled over the next couple of days. And I think more than 700 flights in total through Hong Kong have been cancelled or suspended. So It's probably rough over there at the moment. So if
I'd
you're
say
in
very
Hong
rough.
Kong
And
Airport,
combine that. So imagine, you're trying to come back to Australia from London via Hong Kong, and you're having this absolute perfect storm of horrible
literally,
airport incidents. What are the
literally,
wishing goals? An actual perfect storm.
yeah, it's Adam, if you're out there,
Good luck.
stay safe.
Yes. Stay on the ground for a bit, I'd recommend.
And if you were not planning on leaving, if you're not planning on leaving London within the next week or so, stay safe anyway. I've heard I've heard it's a rough time over there.
Sure.
Rough time over there.
Anyway,
What with all the chavs and the
yes.
NHS and the
Yes.
and whatnot.
The whatnot. Moving along.
Moving along. I don't know where I was going with that.
I hear we're having some changes to QantasLink bases.
There's potential changes to QantasLink bases. So, Qantas has basically launched a review of three of its QantasLink bases, Canberra, Hobart, and Mildura. They're basically looking at whether they should be shut down, these bases, for the sake of efficiency, essentially, and the staff sort of shuttled off to larger bases in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. This has sparked quite a ferocious pushback from a number of corners. The unions have come out against it. There was a joint survey by the TW, the Australian Federation of Air Pilots, and AIPA, which is the Australian International Pilots Association, of pilots that were potentially affected by the closures. This survey found that apparently 68% would look for other jobs if these bases were closed down. 25% more were undecided. And the unions have said, Qantas previously said that all bases are going to remain operational. And less than a year ago, it had endorsed pilots going to any base of their choice. So some pilots have, just bought houses near their bases. Others have said it will split up their families. It'll force them to choose between their careers and their kids. Michael Caine, the National Secretary of the TWU, said it's not enough that pilots have already uprooted their entire lives once after the last base closures. Now they may have to do so again and make the impossible choice between their career and their loved ones, because apparently 1 in 5 pilots surveyed have already had to relocate due to a base closure.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, yeah. What about the local communities? Is there an impact on the local communities that might be losing these local bases?
Andrew Wilkie, the Tasmanian MP, has come out and urged QantasLink to keep its Hobart base open. Around 70 staff would be affected in total across these 3 bases, including a substantial number in Hobart itself. According to Wilkie, dozens of aircraft crew are currently based in the city, providing valuable jobs and a good lifestyle for the airline's staff, saving Qantas enormous layover expenses and providing operational flexibility. So that's what Wilkie said. Excuse me. Now, Rachel Yangoyan, the chief executive of QantasLink, has said that no final decision has been made on the future of these bases. She said, quote, "This announcement is part of an ongoing review of our base structure, which is focused on improving reliability for our customers and ensuring we can continue to grow our regional flying network into the future." She said, "Having more team members based at our busiest ports will help us respond more quickly to disruptions and reduce delays and cancellations for our customers. If a decision is made to close these bases, there'll be ongoing work for all of our pilots and cabin crew, and we're committed to supporting our people through this process." So it's a thorny issue, as Adam might be having in Heathrow at the moment. And so you'd have to hope for the sake of the people in, the workers in Hobart, Canberra, and Mildura, that these bases do stay open, because there's been all of this pushback against it. What's your take on this, David?
Well, I mean, so what are these efficiencies that Qantas is hoping to find? Because it doesn't seem to pass the pub test for me that shutting down a base will make some other base more efficient somewhere else. Surely these bases existed in these areas for a reason, to serve those areas.
Yeah. So what Rachel Yangoyan said was, Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane are the busiest ports for Qantas and QantasLink, and so closing the smaller bases would allow them to put more staff in at these bigger bases, and reduce disruptions there. So that's the argument from Qantas's perspective.
But, I want to go back to us talking about, I think we spoke last week about these massive bonuses that Qantas executives are getting. Again, like maybe there's a better use for that, some of that money to keep these regional bases open where they've got staff, where they've got people, where they've got communities that do rely upon these services. So, yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, it'll be one to watch. The review hasn't finished yet.
Yeah.
We don't know whether or not these bases will close, but if and when we do find out, we will be telling you as soon as possible. So stay tuned to the Australian Aviation Podcast. I mean, don't keep listening after this podcast is finished because we just get dead air. But next time we have a podcast, if there's news, that's when you'll hear about it. All right, we're going to go for a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have more of the week's news. Back in a sec.
Back moment.
Right, welcome back. You're here with the Australian Aviation Podcast. I am here in Honolulu and not at home with a cold. Now, speaking of airlines, speaking of Qantas, it is time, as it always is every month, to give away the prestigious Huey Award, the most prestigious award in the Australian aviation sector. Now, David, you're not familiar with the Huey, are you?
I was about to point out, I have no idea what this is apart from a Vietnam War era helicopter.
Well, the Huey Award is, of course, named after Huey Lewis of Huey Lewis and
right.
News, who famously sang a song about getting back in time. So the Huey Award for the most reliable airline is essentially for the airline that is the best at getting you back in time.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay, so who's the winner this month?
Well, let's go through the Vitra data first,
Right.
because we base this semi-scientifically on the report from Vitra, which is the official sort of government bureau that looks after aviation statistics and other transport statistics. Generally, the major battle among the domestic airlines is, of course, between Qantas and Virgin Australia, and in August. This once again, Qantas has bested Virgin Australia for the on-time reliability, so on-time arrivals and on-time departures. But big asterisk: Qantas had the worst cancellation rate of any domestic airline in the month.
I knew it wasn't sounding right to my ears. Like Qantas can't have gotten that. There it is. There's the other shoe.
So Qantas and QantasLink combined saw 76.9% on-time arrivals. 78.1% on-time departures. This is compared to 69.8% on-time arrivals, 70.8% on-time departures for the Virgin Australia network, which is Virgin Australia and VARA. However, QF designated flights, 3.1% were cancelled, compared to 1.4% for Virgin.
That's quite a stark difference. That's double, isn't it? Yeah.
Qantas Domestic had the highest cancellation rate of all, 3.3%. Jetstar performed solidly in the middle of the pack. 75.1% on-time arrivals, 73.9% on-time departures, 2% cancellations. So this was, to be fair to the airlines, a month of wild and woolly weather. It was the wettest August, at least in Sydney, in almost 30 years.
That's a really good point, actually, yeah.
So according to Virgin, adverse weather had impacted approximately 1 in 12 domestic flights during the month. Now, the reason that Virgin has a lower on-time performance rating, but also lower cancellations, is because Virgin, and we've discussed this on the podcast a couple of times, has this policy of prioritizing flight completions above on-time performance. So Virgin will delay a flight for longer before cancelling the flight and putting the passengers on another plane.
So that's actually a doctrinal choice that they're making to prioritize that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So, Virgin is kind of banking on the idea that passengers would rather depart late than be bumped off a flight and stuck on another one.
That's interesting. I was going to ask you what you think about that. I mean, no one likes to be their flight to be delayed, but also I think regardless, you're getting off the ground later than you want, and no one likes to spend any more time in an airport than they really want to. Most of my domestic travel at the moment is business related, and thankfully, we always book our travel with enough of a window either side that it's not going to cause any issues if we're late for a few hours or get in the morning instead of the evening. But I can see for some people it be making no damn difference. For people who do fly in, fly out, like they fly into Melbourne for an hour-long meeting, then fly back, if that turns into a delay, it doesn't matter how long it is, it's still going to mess up your day. But I think I'd rather it to be a late flight than cancelled flight.
Yeah.
Just hearing cancelled flights over and over is demoralizing when you're sitting there.
Yeah,
at the
and
airport.
it's, if your flight gets cancelled, sometimes there's no way of knowing how late the flight is that you're going to be bumped to. So, I turned back to last year when my partner and I were stuck in Melbourne for 2 days because our flight was cancelled, and the next available flight, it was cancelled on the Monday, and the next available flight was on the Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean,
buy travel insurance.
By travel insurance, yeah. I mean, that's just not on, because then suddenly you've got all those extra accommodation costs, you've got all the extra costs of feeding yourself, the time lost in being able to work efficiently. That's a huge strike against you.
Yeah. Actually, funny story this year. I've booked the flights with Virgin again on points to go down to Melbourne this year because we've been squirreling them away all year, as we do. And I got an email the other day saying we've been bumped from our flight on Monday evening. It's like, oh great, when are we on now? Turns out they bumped us from that flight and put us on an earlier flight. And it's like, and they were like, we're very, very sorry about this. We put you on a different flight. Do you accept this change? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. Okay. I'll take the earlier flight.
Could be worse.
So yeah, basically what Virgin says is, in the event of disruption, and this is Danny Norman, the general manager of their integrated operations center. In the event of disruption, we will prioritize completing a flight in order to get our guests to their destinations on the desired day of travel, wherever possible.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, so it's, if the flight is delayed, you might leave a few hours late. If your flight is cancelled, you might be bumped 2 days.
Yeah.
Danny Norman also said, for the calendar year to date, Virgin Australia maintains an average cancellation rate of below 2%, the lowest of the major Australian airlines. Excuse me, and departure on-time performance of approximately 79% for domestic flights. So that is basically the story with the Bitra data. Again, another month of wild weather has sort of hammered the on-time performance rating. Long-term averages, across all participating airlines, on-time departures, on-time arrivals, cancellations, all worse than the long-term averages again. And this is after a run of a couple of months early this year when they were above the long-term averages. So still a bit of work to be done.
Yeah. It's interesting that they blame the wild and woolly weather. We all know, anybody who watches the weather knows that we are looking at more often and more extreme weather events. So with climate change being what it is, we're going to see more and more months where it's iffy like this. It's just going to become more regular, and eventually probably throughout the year for various reasons. It could be a super typhoon somewhere. It could be a bushfire somewhere else. It could be a wetter and windier average than month somewhere. I think we're probably going to see more and more of these disruptions as time goes on.
But it's all a big con job. Okay, our countries are going to hell.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you.
But we're getting sidetracked because the main purpose of this segment is, of course, to give away the Huey Award, which is a fashionable glass trophy that sits in the Australian Aviation Podcast studio. I don't have it here with me in Honolulu. So there will be no ceremonial changing of the sticky taped label. But we return to an old champion of the Huey. And this is an airline that is consistently very, very reliable. We've got reliability, on-time performance rates in the 90s, right? This is an airline that in August not only had on-time arrivals and departures above 90%, but cancelled no flights. Not a single flight from this airline was cancelled.
I will have some questions on this one, but I'm very interested. Yes.
This is Queensland-based regional carrier Hinterland Aviation, returning once more again to the Huey Trophy. Well done, Hinterland.
Congratulations, bravo, golf claps all around. How many flights do they do?
Well, let me just get the Bitra.
I just want to get a comparison between how many flights Hinterland runs and say how many flights Qantas Domestic runs.
Bitra Domestic Aviation Performance.
Thrilling audio here as Jake hammers away at his keyboard to find out the answer to this question. I've asked completely blind.
So, for the month of August, Hinterland operated 1,623 sectors. across all QF designated services, Qantas had above 20,000, Virgin had about 11,000, Rex still about 4,600, Jetstar 7,800. Smart Links Australia, which was formerly Skytrans, was lower at 286, and Vara was lower still at 160. So Hinterland does not operate as many flights as some of the larger airlines. So, of course, you can expect some lift in reliability there. But even still, look,
it is more flights than I was expecting, because I thought there'd be some weird, hinky statistical stuff there. But no, that's actually an impressive outcome.
It is. And, Hinterland has won the Huey Award a few times, and they've won it again this month. So congratulations to all of you up there in Cairns.
They're flying out of Cairns. That's a region that gets some very interesting weather up there.
It does.
So if they can manage that level of reliability, bravo, a deserved winner of the prestigious Huey Award.
We have here, of course, the Australian Aviation Excellence Award that is given out at the Australian Aviation Awards every year. Even that lofty title pales in comparison to the Huey Award for Most Reliable Airline.
I can only imagine.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to the Australian Aviation Podcast. Now, there's been an interesting push that's come out of IATA, the International Air Transport Association, which is basically the sort of the global peak body and organizing body for the airline industry. They are looking to raise the mandatory retirement age for international pilots. So currently, pilots flying international services have to retire at age 65. But what IATA is arguing, and this was increased from 60 years old in 2006, IATA is saying that with advances in medical technology and with advances in health, pilots can have longer, healthier careers while keeping safeguards in place. So Willie Walsh, the Director General of IATA, at a media conference ahead of the ICAO assembly this week, that's the International Civil Aviation Organization, has said there is, quote, no evidence to support the current restriction and a lot of evidence that moving to 67 could be done without any impact to safety. He says this is data-based, evidence-based decision-making policy. The risk assessment shows that an increase in the retirement age from 65 to 67, maintaining other safety measures represents a safe option for the industry. So under this plan, if you're over the age of 65, you would still need to be accompanied in the cockpit by a pilot under 65, and you would need stronger standardized medical oversight to ensure safety. Here we have Willie Walsh again. He said, you don't have age restrictions on many critical jobs around the world. The difference with our industry, and particularly when it comes to pilots, is that pilots' licensing requires continuous assessment, not just in terms of skills, but also in continuous medical assessment. He said that's what enables us to use data to make a risk assessment that gives us confidence that we can move from 65 to 67 and do so in a safe manner. And there is also a note here that international pilots have to retire at 65, but domestic pilots, at least when in Australia, can fly past the age of 70. So, David, what do you think of this? Well,
it's interesting. So clearly, I would say one of the reasons they're doing this is they want to keep more pilots in the pilot chair longer. Clearly, that would be one of the goals of this. My first thought was every French pilot in the world must be wanting to riot right now because they always get angry when things like retirement age gets increased or pension age gets increased. But I worry that not so much about the safety, because the pilot is just one part of aviation safety, right? Sure, a very important one, but that doesn't worry me so much. What worries me is it's not an easy job. So it's keeping you in that pilot chair for longer when, honestly, you just might want to get out of it. So I can understand if there's a lot of pilots out there who might be upset about that.
Now, this is what I'll point out. This is an age at which you are forced to retire.
Yeah.
Not an age at which you can retire.
Interesting. How many pilots do remain in the chair for that long?
Well, I mean, longtime friend of the Australian Aviation, Deborah Laurie, I believe is sort of over the age of 60. I don't ask a lady her age, but I believe she is over that age, and she is still flying. And there's a few again, pilots in Australia domestically can fly over the age of 70.
It's honestly something I never really thought about, because in my mind, you picture what an airline pilot looks like, and they're kind of like this handsome middle age. Almost all the time in my head, even though I know that there are pilots that are far, far younger, and obviously pilots that are far, far older. I've never really thought of someone being at the age of 65 and flying the international jetliner I'm in. It just never comes to mind. So I don't know what I think about it, honestly. What do pilots think about it?
Well, the pilots union, or at least one of the pilots unions in Australia, AIPA, the Australian International Pilots Association, the president, Andrew Marshall, said, quote, AIPA would support raising the compulsory retirement age for international pilots from 65 to 67 if the decision is made based on science and the current medical requirements for pilots continue to apply.
Yeah, which it will, obviously.
Yes. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the ICAO conference this week. Now, speaking of ICAO, we've had a development in the MH17 case. You, of course, know the story of MH17, yes. David. Shot down over eastern Ukraine by Russian separatists in 2014.
Yep.
The Russian government, speaking of Russia from earlier, has gone to the International Court of Justice to try and to appeal the guilty verdict in the downing of flight MH17. Back in May, the ICAO Council concluded it had violated international law on the use of weapons against civil aircraft in flight. The blame was laid on personnel supplied with anti-air weaponry from Russia in the area.
Yeah.
And Australia has demanded reparations following the finding from ICAO. Now, the Russian government, in a press release, has called the verdict a prearranged decision, said that the ICAO Council had distorted or disregarded Russia's arguments and violated its own procedure, blah, 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 for time-serving political reasons. So this press release said, and I quote, contrary to the provisions of UN Security Council Resolution 2166, the ICAO Council did not consider it necessary to carry out a comprehensive, thorough, and independent international investigation of the crash, instead taking at face value the highly questionable conclusions of the technical and criminal investigation carried out under the auspices of an interested party, the Netherlands, and on the basis of adulterated facts that were mostly provided by another interested party, Ukraine. Therefore, Russia is appealing the ICAO Council's decision on all grounds, including on grounds of jurisdiction, applicable law, factual findings, and fatal procedural violations. The fact of the appeal in no way amounts to Russia's legitimization or recognition of the ICAO Council's actions in this case, which Russia previously declared to be void. Russia
we don't agree with you, we don't believe you, but we're going to fight it anyway.
Yes. Now, according to Russia, the Council's decision has been appealed and consequently has not come into effect. And a very, very snarky message from Russia. This will be a huge disappointment for The Hague and Canberra, which have already demanded compensation from Russia based on the result of the ICAO Council's pseudo-legal actions and have likely prepared to slander Russia at the 42nd session of the ICAO Assembly, which will begin in Montreal on September the 23rd.
Yesterday, in fact.
I believe in Canada time today.
Yeah, well, the datelines, are they even the thing? Yeah.
Now, naturally, the Australian government is not happy.
Nope.
Penny Wong has basically called this a deplorable attempt to dodge responsibility. She said, Australia will strongly resist any attempts to appeal the decision of the ICAO Council. We continue to stand with the 298 victims, including 38 Australians and their families, in the pursuit of truth, justice, and accountability. We again call on Russia to face up to its responsibility and make reparations as required under international law. So, I mean, it's probably not an unexpected move from Russia at this point.
It's not unexpected, but the fact remains it was Russian hardware in the hands of, as you said earlier, Russian separatists.
Or Russian-backed separatists.
Yeah, Russian-backed separatists. Almost certainly Russian officers with the serial numbers filed off. That whole, it's Russia did it. Russia bears responsibility. That I have no doubts about that. And of course they're going to try and dodge it. They're trying to win in every front they can, even if it's some bureaucratic thing like this. They'll take the wins where they can. But no, Russia did it.
Yeah, I think that's generally the conclusion.
Yeah.
Moving on from Russia, we've had a potential deal for the sale of Rex.
Who's interested?
So this is a NASDAQ-listed company from the US called Air T. Apparently, according to the AFR and the Australian, sources are basically saying that there is a bid for Rex that has been put together by Air T. The proposal is being looked at by the Prime Minister. This would see that Rex return to commercial hands, avoid nationalisation. Air T, interestingly enough, is the owner of Kingman Airport in Arizona, and Rex got into a bit of trouble earlier this year or last year. Yeah, last year. Excuse me, a lawsuit from a leasing and maintenance firm called Jet Midwest, alleging that Rex had essentially stolen 4 planes and stripped them for parts.
Okay, that's a wild claim.
This lawsuit has been dismissed at the moment because Rex is currently in administration. But the Financial Review speculated, well, this is where Air T, that owns Kingman Airport, might have come. This is where Rex might have come to their attention. So that would be an odd way to sell the airline.
Hey, these guys are good at stealing aircraft. Let's buy them.
Allegedly. Sorry,
allegedly. Yes.
Now, apparently, according to the Oz, there is, dual negotiations between the complicating these things with, with EY Australia, the administrator, and the federal government. The potential buyer, Air T, may be seeking support from the government to keep it flying because, Rex's fleet is a basket case at the moment. I think only, according to the Oz, only 30 of its 56 Saab 340Bs are in operation, with the remainder either parked or undergoing maintenance. And these things are
old,
ancient. Yeah.
They
range in age from 27 to 35.7 years, average age of about 30. So,
good grief,
not great.
Yeah.
It's Rex had going back to the Bitra data, some of the worst performance. About approximately the worst performance on the board. More than 30% of flights cancelled, which is not great. This company, Air T, it's believed that they're remaining interested. It's a company based in North Carolina. According to their website, they have a few business arms: aircraft trading, aircraft leasing, parts, freight operations. They apparently seek to invest in dynamic, talented individuals and teams, insightful doers in their business domains. We apply corporate resources to activate growth and overcome challenges, ultimately building great enterprises that flourish by winning over the long term. This would sort of echo the fate of Virgin Australia, which of course went into administration in 2020 and was bought by Bain Capital. Bain Capital slimmed it down, refocused it and launched it back onto the ASX this year, making a tidy profit out of the whole deal. A rare occasion where private equity does something right. But this other company, Air T, it's curious that this is the one that's being floated around. There has been, and we've covered this a few times on the podcast, another organization, Renaissance Partners, who are looking to launch this restored TAA. You don't know if you're old enough to remember TAA, David.
I certainly am. Yes.
So they're looking to bring back the TAA brand as a third airline, and they want Rex to be the sort of regional arm of this airline. And they have been jumping up and down saying, we'll take it. And have, put binding offers before the government, but they seem to have been given the cold shoulder. So I'd be curious to find out what the reason behind all of that is, because, Renaissance has been saying we have a credible bid, we have backers, we will repay in full, we will make sure that everyone gets their money. So I'm interested to see what the deal is there. But I will say that if this purchase does go ahead, then we can, on this podcast, talk about the Air T Rex deal, which would be sick as hell.
I've got nothing except applause. Bravo.
Thank you.
Yes. I think that's a good high note. I think that's a good high note right there.
It is. We do have a couple more things to cover off.
Okay, cool.
Couple more things. And then I can get back to sipping drinks from coconuts on this beautiful
yes, of course,
beach in Honolulu and not needing to blow my nose or take medication.
Mhm.
Virgin Australia has launched a couple of interesting initiatives. Now, the first one is one that it's been kicking around for a while, and trying to sort out and nail down the best way to carry it out. Pets in cabins. So Virgin.
Woof.
Yes, so Virgin, of course, already allows pets to be transported in the cargo hold, but this is something that's been in the works for months and months and months now. And what Virgin wants to do is allow pet owners to carry their pets onto the plane, essentially as carry-on luggage a little bit, in soft carriers, stick them under the seat in front, and keep them there for the duration of the flight. So the pets would not be allowed to roam free in the cabin. This is going to be launched as a trial, starting on the 16th of October. So pets will be allowed on flights between Melbourne and the sunny coast and Melbourne and the Gold Coast starting on the 16th of October. This will gather in insights and feedback until 30th of January next year before a broader domestic rollout. So there'll be an extra charge of $149. Small dogs and cats in approved carriers, not exceeding 8 kilograms. Also,
no Great Danes. No Great Danes.
No Great Danes. Also, 4 animals in total will be allowed on board any given flight, and they will be stowed under seats 18A, 18F, 20A, and 20F. So only under specific seats.
And on either side of the cabin as well. So
and on either side of the cabin, correct.
I tell you what, though, the capability for all 4 animals to quietly poop themselves mid-flight absolutely appalls me. Yes, well,
there has been, concern about this, and they've looked at all of that, and allergy and hygiene concerns as well. So they announced this back in 2024. Dr. Kelly Bofkin, who is the Virgin Australia Group Medical Officer, said that customer feedback has been carefully reviewed. So all of the aircraft are fit with advanced HEPA filtration systems, which capture more than 99% of airborne particles, including pet dander. Air circulates from top to bottom, and the cabin air is renewed 20 to 30 times an hour, which reduces the risk of airborne allergen transfer. Also, the creation of buffer zones, 2 rows behind and 2 rows in front of the allocated pet rows, will ensure that this risk of guests of allergen exposure is significantly reduced. So they've consulted with peak allergy bodies, worked with other airlines that currently carry pets, looked to best medical evidence. The air in the cabin, fresh air is brought in from the outside. Cabin air is recycled and recirculated through these HEPA filters. So hopefully it shouldn't be a problem. Now, the carriers have to be soft-sided. They have to be leak-proof. And Virgin is encouraging owners to make use of external animal relief areas before going into the airport. So, let your pet go to the toilet before you put it on the plane.
External animal relief area is the
most
technical term for that I've ever heard. I love it.
Yeah, very a bloodless term, and other fluids less as well. So this would seem to resolve, or hopefully resolve, from passengers' perspective, a lot of concerns about allergies. I think the main thing that still might give you pause is safety. Because the pets won't be allowed out of their carriers. Sorry,
pause.
Yeah, that's very good. And you'll have to look at the clauses in the contract. And I don't think passengers will want to be muzzled on this issue. But safety may be a concern because, of course, in the event of an emergency, and we've mentioned this on the podcast before, in the event of the emergency, you are supposed to leave all of your luggage on the plane. So
including Spot.
Yeah, will pet owners, leave, Spot or Fluffy or Mr. Kitty Whiskers, the poodle, on the plane to, burn or drown or suffocate while they escape? And if they do try to take their pets, that will, of course, slow everybody down. So
what exact problem is this solution for?
It's they've done customer surveys and things like that, and it's basically been sort of established that passengers and a lot of pet owners do want their pets in the cabin with them.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the original thing, 70% would travel with their pet in the cabin. 57% would fly more regularly if the option was available. So
Okay.
it makes
so there is a perceived demand.
Yeah, it makes it easier for pet owners to fly with their pets.
Yeah.
So apparently, almost 70% of Australian households have a pet. Pet-friendly accommodation providers will get this increased connectivity.
That is something I have heard, that a lot of those accommodation providers are all about this, because it basically boosts their customer base.
Exactly. So it's there is a demand out there for it. The main question that I still have remaining is, what's the safety issue here?
Yeah.
Will passengers really want to leave a spot behind on the plane if they have to evacuate? So
also, I mean, cats in carriers generally aren't happy animals, and they will yowl forever. So that's also going to be impactful.
And that might set some of the dogs off. And
yeah. Cats and dogs flying together. Yeah, end time stuff right there.
Yeah, it's they're living in sin.
Yeah.
Another product that Virgin Australia has come out with that just launched today is neighbor-free seating on Virgin flights. So what this is basically, I believe all Virgin flights are neighbors-free seating, because you can't get that on the in-flight entertainment. But neighbor-free seating basically allows you, if you're seated in economy, to bid a little extra or pay extra to leave the seat next to you empty, thus giving you more space. So you're not crammed in a row with three people. You have an empty seat next to you, where you can, put stuff or just, stretch out a bit more. And this is after a customer survey in 2023 found that 42% of Virgin passengers would pay extra to keep the middle seat empty on international flights over 3 hours, and 35% on domestic flights over 3 hours. This is not open to people who are in economy X or business class. You don't get any extra baggage. You just get the seat next to you with no one sitting in it.
Yeah. Huh.
Is this something that you would consider?
I don't know. I mean, I can't see the point on a domestic flight. Unless you're hopping Sydney to Perth, or flying Sydney to Cairns, for instance. It's an hour in the cabin. How precious are you that you want that extra seat? Traveling international, whenever I get a seat next to me that's empty, I thank every possible god that I can. There I see it being a thing. But also it comes down to, how much extra are you paying? Would it not be better to put that money towards a better seat entirely?
It's sort of a bidding process. So bids, I think, can start as low as $30, and then sort of notify you if your bid's been accepted. But I think the scourge of the middle seat is something that airlines have been sort of focusing on a little lately.
Yeah.
One of the big selling points of the E190 E2 that we talked about last week was there is no middle seat.
2x2, yeah.
2x2. And the A220s that QantasLink is now flying have a 2x3 configuration. So one side has no middle seat, the other side does have a middle seat. And Virgin has had this middle seat lottery in the past where, if you book a middle seat, you can go into the draw to win fabulous prizes or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting initiative, and it's sort of, I guess, what would be the sort of profit concerns, because if someone's paying $30 to keep the seat next to them empty, that's a seat that Virgin are not selling to someone who's paying full price.
Exactly. So what does that mean? You end up with less people on the aircraft, which means you need to have more flights to move the same amount of people.
Now this is, it might just be these are seats on the plane that haven't been sold anyway.
Yeah.
And so if you are buying this seat, it wouldn't have otherwise gone to a paying passenger because there's a spare seat empty somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess if it's a bidding process, if there is no seat available, you're not losing any money anyway. However, if you're willing to throw $50 at the possibility that you might be shifted to a seat, or an empty seat might be shifted near to you. But yeah, I just how does that work with people pre-booking their seats, for instance?
Well, so it's that Virgin has details on its website, and I'm just going there again now. Yes, I have a loud keyboard.
I can't hear it at all. I think you have quite a quiet keyboard.
It's so how do I fly neighbor free? So progressively rolled out from this month.
Yep.
neighbor-free seats, bid ranges vary depending on the route. So one thing is, if I receive a confirmation of my neighbor seat free seat request, does that mean it's guaranteed? No. So if the seat is required for safety or for operational reasons, passengers will get their money back. So if it's occupied when you get to the cabin, that seat has been allocated. You'll get your money back. So neighbor-free seat just includes the seat next to you. You can't store cabin baggage on the vacant seat, but you can put your stuff under the seat in front.
Okay.
It's basically just if you pay that money, you'll get a neighbor-free seat. If they need to fill that seat, you will get your money back.
Yeah. Okay. It seems unnecessarily fiddly.
Little bit, but they're doing it as a trial to start out with, and then rolling it out. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, I guess it's there for those who want it, but I can't see myself ever using it.
Well, maybe on one of these international flights where you
maybe
thanking
absolutely.
God.
Yeah.
So on that note, that is about all the time we have for the Australian Aviation Podcast today. I have to get back to my hotel for the luau and not to blow my nose. So I will see you, and David and I will see you both next week. Now, fingers crossed, I might, if I am back from Honolulu, have a trip report for you next week on the first flight of Qantas's new A321 XLR.
Oh, fantastic. Fingers crossed for that one.
Fingers crossed. It depends on whether I can return in time from Waikiki. But until then, keeping our fingers crossed, that is all from me and David. So until next time on the Australian Aviation Podcast, it's goodbye from me. And
goodbye from me.